So the first thing you're going to want to do is actually research the habitat in which your captive is native to. In this case, it's a poison dart frog species that is native throughout most of Central America, and it inhabits everywhere from the forest floor up into the canopy. So you're going to want to wipe off all the glass surfaces that you have that you're going to be adding silicone to, because this will make it easier to stick. So we are using GE Silicone 1. This has no mold inhibitors, so it's going to be safe for your reptiles and amphibians. And the method we'll be using for this side of the tank is what's known as a cork tile background. Now, Zoomed produces these. They are really easy and effective. So when you go to choose your driftwood, you're going to want to make it so it's in an optimum space so that as much of the surface area of the tank can be utilized by its inhabitants. The next method is known as the Great Stuff method because you use great stuff. Here we're using Great Stuff Pond and Stone. This is meant for pond building, but it works great in this instance as it is safe for animals and a nice dark color and quite easy to apply. Now that the foam is still wet, it's a good time to add pots such as peat pots and pieces of cork and your driftwood to the background. Now here I'm going to be adding in some pieces of bark. Now it doesn't have to be cork bark, but it is important that it is clean, and if you want to see how to do that, click on the tag in the corner of the video. But basically any natural pieces of bark are good, as well as sticks and other things, but they all decay at a different rate. And here we're applying peat pots opposed to the regular plastic ones, simply because I think they're more aesthetically pleasing and you won't see them in a few weeks after the plants start growing in. It's also important to remember that you don't have to go all the way to the bottom of your tank, because you're going to have your substrate and your drainage layer down there, and you don't really need your background to extend that far. Next is probably the most tedious part of the build, and this is carving. So you're going to want to carve off all the smooth surfaces of your spray foam, because this is going to make it a whole lot easier for the silicone to attach to it. As well, it will look way more natural because you can carve in indentations and stuff, opposed to just a bunch of lumpy looking foam that is not really aesthetically pleasing. Now once you get your carving all finished, you're going to be applying more of your silicone to the background. And now this is to add your background mix, which can be anything from coconut fiber to sphagnum moss, or your own personal mix of a variety of different products. And here you're going to want to do this in portions, because your silicone will dry most likely before you can get the whole background covered in it. So generally you're going to want to wear gloves and have one hand to silicone and the other hand to apply your background mix. Now you're going to want to let this sit for at least 24 hours or until the vinegar smell from the silicone is completely gone. Then we can move on to our next step of actually vacuuming out all of the leftover pieces of background. Now don't forget to poke holes into your pots so that water doesn't get trapped there and your plants have proper drainage. Now that the background is dry, you can go ahead and do some touch-up spots if you'd like, by either using more coconut fiber, or you can add in long pieces of sphagnum moss like you see here. Now I have to give Jungle Jewel Exotics a big shout out for this amazing idea. So basically here we have a cut open pop bottle that I have siliconed, and we're sticking this to the bottom of the tank, and this is simply to allow for removal of excess water. And all we're doing here with the pop bottle lid is actually covering it in silicone and coconut husk, and look at that. It's going to blend right into the substrate. Now here we're actually adding in our drainage layer. Now there's many different methods. Here we are using a black lava rock. Now you can pick this up really cheap at landscape suppliers, and I think it looks really good. It also serves as an area for beneficial bacteria to congregate if you're going to do something with a water feature or similar to a paludarium. Next, we are going to be using a substrate divider, and this is a landscape fabric used in gardening. Now what we've done here is pre-cut it to the dimensions of the vivarium, and we've also slit a spot for our access to the drainage layer. Next, we're going to be adding in some charcoal. Now this is to weigh it down before we add in more substrate so that substrate doesn't fall underneath, although that's not too big of a deal. But it also adds as an extra source of purification of water, again if you're going to be using some sort of water feature. Here we're adding in the substrate mix I showed you how to do. Click on the little tag in the corner to check out that video. Now what you're going to want to do with this substrate is even it out. We're going to kind of push more of it into the back to give it more of a depth of field, and then give it a nice spritz of water so that the plants aren't going into something that is super dry and will suck the water right out of them. So this is our last bit of hardscape. This is a piece of driftwood that I collected. I showed you guys how to properly clean this in a video, and basically what this is going to be used for is to add some more aesthetics as well as add a bit more surface area to the tank. And now comes the fun bit, planting. So essentially we're going to be using several different plant species to achieve a jungle rainforest type aesthetic. Now it's important to note that you're going to want to use plants that are similar to the biotope or the natural habitat, not necessarily ones that are native, but ones that will thrive in the environment. In this case we're doing a rainforest habitat, so we're going to be using plants that are found in neotropical rainforest regions around the planet. Here is where the pots in the background come in handy, because you can add in plants that aren't necessarily epiphytic, or add in epiphytic plants that are hard to mount. Another handy technique to mounting your epiphytes is to use paper clips that have been bent into little pins. Now this allows for your plants to root into the background and get more established. You can also use toothpicks for this. Now probably the easiest epiphyte to mount are stoloniferous bromeliads. All you have to do is cut the stolon at a 45-degree angle and then press it right into the foam background. So time to make it bioactive. We'll look at these two later. So here we have mycorrhizae and trichoderma. These are both beneficial fungi that form symbiotic relationships with plants. You're going to want to mix these into dechlorinated water and spray everywhere, and these will dramatically increase your plant's growth once sprayed in the vivarium. So if you use the substrate mix, it's going to already contain beneficial composting bacteria, and these will actually help break down the wastes produced by your animals in the vivarium. So next we're going to be adding our largest component of the bioactivity, and this is our cleanup crew. We're going to be using 4 species. On the screen you can see the dwarf white isopod and the peach springtail, but we also will have in here the temperate white springtail as well as the silver dwarf springtail. Now these guys are going to work together to break down unwanted fungi and animal waste into a more usable size for the beneficial bacteria to break down, that will then get absorbed by the beneficial fungus and then go directly back into the plants. And here's our last step, which is adding a layer of leaf litter. This is going to be beneficial for not only your inhabitants, but it's also going to act as a fertilizer and a food source for your cleanup crews. Voila! Here we have a fully bioactive tropical rainforest vivarium. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I can't wait to see how the progress goes within the next months. And once the inhabitants get here, be sure you'll be seeing a video on that. And be sure to hit that bell icon and subscribe button to keep up with all the fun projects we have on the channel. Till next time guys, God bless.